up, guys? So I've already discussed Barbie on the channel, so it's time for me to discuss the other half of 2023's double feature cinematic summer blockbuster moment, and it is Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, hence why I'm wearing the t-shirt today. Apologies that this review is coming to you a few weeks late. I've been busy, my little brother got married a few weeks ago and I was in America for it, so I've been traveling and preoccupied. But even though this is a few weeks late, I still wanted to do a review on Oppenheimer because when I saw this film, it floored me, and I wanted to put my thoughts out there. I know a lot has already been said about this film, but I wanted to give you my thoughts on it and also give you my predictions as to what Oscar nominations I think it's going to get, because I think it's going to be a player at the Academy Awards. So Oppenheimer is the story of real-life physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, playing this film by Cillian Murphy. Oppenheimer was best known as the father of the atomic bomb, which is the primary focus of this film's narrative, which sees him assembling a team for the Manhattan Project and them building and testing the first ever atomic bomb in Los Alamos, New Mexico. But because this is a Christopher Nolan film and he likes a non-linear structure, we see events before and after that. We see him as a younger man when he's a professor at Berkeley, as well as meeting his wife Kitty, who's played by Emily Blunt, as well as his affair that he had with Jean Tatlock, played by Florence Pugh. And we also see events that take place after the bomb testing, where there's a hearing in 1954, which was orchestrated by Lewis Strauss, who's playing this film by Robert Downey Jr., in order to assassinate Oppenheimer's character by accusing him of being a communist, as well as the toll that the bomb itself has taken on him mentally. There are a lot of narrative threads here, but Nolan and editor Jennifer Lame expertly weave them all together to create a dense yet gripping thriller slash biopic about one of history's most complicated historical figures who could both be seen as a hero to some and a villain to others. It clocks in at almost 3 hours long, but thankfully the film justifies its runtime. The pacing is so precise. Nolan, who also adapted the screenplay from the book American Prometheus, packs so much in about Oppenheimer's life, but the film never feels bloated. The first 2/3 of the film really feels like we're building towards something, that being the first bomb test, and Jennifer Lame never lets the momentum drop. What's also remarkable about Christopher Nolan's screenplay is how many different genres it manages to juggle. It's all at once a political thriller, a courtroom drama, an ensemble drama, a romance, a psychological horror, bear with me on that, I'll explain in a second, and an epic and tragic character study. Christopher Nolan is certainly not known for making biopics about historical figures, so this is something of a change of pace for him, but it still distinctly feels like a Nolan film. If you went into this film not knowing who had made Oppenheimer, you would be able to sense Christopher Nolan's signature style of intellect and spectacle, interspectacle. You can tell that it's Christopher Nolan's work when you're watching it. And it's easy to spot because he's brought back some of his Tenet collaborators like Jennifer Lame doing the editing, Hoyt van Hoyma with the cinematography, and Ludwig Göransson doing the score. I mentioned before that this film is part psychological horror, and it really is. After the atom bomb or the Trinity test sequence, we start to see the ramifications of Oppenheimer's creation start to weigh on him. It's like Frankenstein's monster. He comes to fear the thing that he's helped create. And how Christopher Nolan and Cillian Murphy convey that psychological toll is unnerving and haunting. The scene in the gymnasium might be the most unsettling scene of 2023. Whilst the citizens of Los Alamos are celebrating Oppenheimer's achievement, we can see how rattled and guilt-ridden he is. Nolan uses these intense close-ups on just Oppenheimer's face to allow you into his mindset. And bear in mind, these are IMAX cameras, okay? So you can see every pore on Cillian Murphy's face. You can go spelunking in his nostrils, but Cillian Murphy has these glassy bug eyes which act like a window into his frazzled psyche. Nolan really knows how to pick actors who can do a lot with their eyes. A great example is Tom Hardy in The Dark Knight Rises and Dunkirk. But yeah, the nuances that Cillian Murphy manages to transmit through his body language, and mostly his eyes, is insane. But also, Christopher Nolan claims there isn't a single bit of CGI in this film. So yeah, they used real bombs when they were making this movie. But what I really want to know is, if there is no CGI, then how did he get the surroundings behind Oppenheimer to vibrate so violently without CGI? Ludwig Göransson also does some of his best work in this gymnasium scene. He utilizes the sound of raucous stamping feet to create a motif that is both celebratory but also dangerous, as if atoms were colliding in a reactor. It is a masterful scene, but this film has no shortage of them. The Trinity sequence is a true showstopper. I haven't had this much anxiety watching a film since fall. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest, my hands were starting to get clammy, and even though I knew they weren't going to ignite the atmosphere, I still sensed the fear and the hesitation before they pushed the button. It was palpable. Again, masterful work from Göransson in that scene. Nolan was so smart to make that scene more about Oppenheimer than the actual bomb exploding. Like, it would have been so easy to focus on the spectacle of a bomb exploding, and of course there is spectacle, but it really is a character moment more than anything. I also adored the sound in that scene, more so the absence of sound, because you're waiting for the boom and there's a delay before it comes, but Christopher Nolan was a genius because what the scene does, it kind of makes you lean in, like, to hear it, and then there's just the right amount of time where you kind of forget that you're waiting for noise, and then boom, like, it actually knocked me back into my seat. Like, that is literally the closest I have ever come to being blown away in a movie. Like, literally. Phenomenal. There's also the hearing scene, which comes a little bit later in the film, where Oppenheimer is being questioned by Roger Robbins, played by Jason Clarke, and that scene is like being in a pressure cooker. It's another instance where Nolan allows you into the mindset of Oppenheimer and how he conveys the turmoil through sound and lighting and blocking and abstract images is just genius. Another great performance by Jason Clarke. Speaking of performances, everybody in this is so good. Like, I would be here all day if I listed off every performance that I was impressed by in this film, because truly everybody brings it. But some of my favorite performances in this were, hands down, Robert Downey Jr. Wow, it's so good to see him given a role that's a challenge and to see him absolutely deliver it as Lewis Strauss. Matt Damon and David Krumholtz performances I really appreciate because they actually provide the film with some humor. A lot of people criticize Nolan's films for not being that funny, but really it's those characters that bring the levity to this film. Like, because it is such a super serious topic, you kind of need a few moments to breathe and chuckle, and that's what they brought to the table. I was a little nervous in the first half of the film that Emily Blunt's character, Kitty, who is Oppenheimer's wife, was getting sidelined, and she didn't really have a whole lot to do in the first half of the film. She's just sort of quietly in the background getting sauced. She loves a booze. But her performance is a bit like a delayed fuse. Like, she doesn't have much to do in the first half, but when the fuse burns out and it gets to her big scene with Jason Clarke, where she's going toe-to-toe to him, that scene, she crushed it. It's like, that's why she signed up for this movie. As far as negatives go, I don't have too many complaints, but there were a couple of moments where I heard a few people's accents slip in and out. I'm looking at you, Keneth Branagh and Rami Malek, but it didn't happen too frequently to the point where it ruined the movie for me. And whilst I love the sound design in this film, there were times where the sound mixing wasn't perfect. Like, I will say this, it is a significant improvement on Tenet. Like, I can actually hear what the character's saying most of the time in Oppenheimer. I could barely hear what they were saying at all in Tenet. But yeah, there were still a few moments in Oppenheimer where I did struggle to hear a few throwaway lines, which did seem kind of important as well. So yeah, there were times where I wish the dialogue was a little bit more clearer. But still, I'm glad Christopher Nolan took on the criticism of Tenet and made this one much more easy to hear. But truly, the sound design in this film was one of my favorite aspects of the whole film. Like, 20 seconds into the film, I leaned into Glenn and said, well, it's already won the sound Oscar. True story. If you go see this film or go see it again, just listen very closely to the first 20 seconds and tell me that's not winning best sound. But while we're on it, shall we talk about its Oscars chances? Nolan films are usually contenders in the technical categories at the Oscars, but I'm actually expecting Oppenheimer to get some nominations in some above the line categories. I'm gonna call it now. I think this is going to be Christopher Nolan's most nominated film at the Oscars ever. Do let me know in the comment section below how many Oscar nominations do you think Oppenheimer is going to get, and in which categories? Let me know. The first and only time Christopher Nolan has been nominated for Best Director at the Oscars was for Dunkirk. And as they say, if you want to get noticed by the Oscars, you either make a war movie or you make a biopic movie. Oppenheimer is technically both, but it's more a biopic than anything. Christopher Nolan is probably going to get an Oscar nomination for this. Not only did he make a biopic, which the Academy usually loves, but he also did it his way, without sacrificing an ounce of artistic vision. He doesn't shy away from symbolism. The ripples in the raindrops look like bomb shockwaves. He incorporates abstract visuals as well, like stars exploding, atoms swirling, light refracting. Heck, I don't even know what I'm looking at half the time with these visuals, but these practical, sciencey flourishes make Oppenheimer a tangible viewing experience. But also he managed to tell this grand, ambitious story and somehow make it feel very personal and human. He absolutely deserves a nomination for Best Director and also one for Best Adapted Screenplay as well. Cillian Murphy also absolutely deserves to be in Best Actor. This would be his first ever Oscar nomination if he does get it, and he absolutely deserves it. I mean, he is Oppenheimer, okay, he is this movie. He's like on the screen for like 90% of it. Cillian Murphy is one of the best actors we have working today. Christopher Nolan has known this for so many years, but it's so nice that he finally got to give Cillian Murphy a leading role on one that he absolutely knocks out of the park. Like, he brings so many dimensions to this character. Like, he's charismatic and magnetic, but after the bomb explodes, you can see how rattled and how tormented he is with guilt. And again, the eye acting, okay? He is just incredible in this. It's high time that we live in a world where I can say Academy Award nominee and maybe winner, Cillian Murphy. I already said that I think Oppenheimer is going to win the Best Sound Oscar, but I also think that Ludwig Göransson is our frontrunner for Best Score, although it's not a done deal yet, guys. You have not heard the score by Robbie Robertson for Killers of the Flower Moon yet. That was incredible. But also, Hans Zimmer's returning this year. He won the previous Oscar for Dune Part 1. Can he do the same for Dune Part 2? I can see Jennifer Lane getting a nomination for editing. Hoyt van Hoyma could get his second ever nomination for cinematography, but it baffles me that he's only ever had one nomination. That was for Dunkirk, and this is the man that gave us Ad Astra and Nope. There are so many great supporting performances in this film. I'm sure other people will make arguments for other supporting players in this film, but the one that has to be the most likely has got to be Robert Downey Jr. for Lewis Strauss. Like, he is so good in this role. It would be his first nomination since 2009 with Tropic Thunder. And yeah, Robert Downey Jr. absolutely delivers here. Like, he could potentially win. Some people have been asking me on Twitter, is Emily Blunt going to get her first Oscar nomination for this role? And while I do agree, Emily Blunt is so overdue for an Oscar nomination, I am not confident that she is a dead cert for a nomination. She's kind of like America Ferrera in Barbie. It feels weird to compare the two movies, even though, yeah, Barbenheimer, but hear me out. America Ferrera has the Impossible to Be a Woman monologue. She gets that one amazing scene which feels like an Oscar clip, and maybe that's what gets her into supporting actress. And Emily Blunt also has the one big scene where she goes toe-to-toe with Jason Clarke, okay? It's a big, juicy, meaty moment, but it's kind of the one scene, the one Oscar clip moment which might not be enough to get you into Best Supporting Actress. Like, it can be done, but is it enough? What do you guys think? Is it going to be Emily Blunt's first Oscar nomination? Let me know in the comment section below. Production design also seems very like this for this film. Like, they actually recreated the Los Alamos town in New Mexico, not too far from where the actual Los Alamos is still there. So yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see it get a nomination for production design. I also wouldn't be too surprised if it managed to squeeze into Best Hair and Makeup. Like, the subtle changes in hair and face as the characters get older throughout the decades, it is subtle makeup work, and usually the Academy likes to acknowledge the more obvious displays of hair and makeup, but they might just go all in on Oppenheimer and say, yeah, I like the hair and makeup in Oppenheimer. Let's give it hair and makeup nomination too. And I know I said that Christopher Nolan said there is no CGI in this film, but that doesn't mean to say that it can't get a nomination for visual effects, because it does have a lot of amazing practical effects in this film. Like, they actually exploded a bomb for real in this movie to get the money shot. So they might just be like, yeah, there's no school, like the old school. Give it the visual effects nom as well. And yes, Oppenheimer is absolutely in my top 10 for Best Picture. I feel quite confident that it is going to be a lock for Best Picture. Like, critics loved it, audiences love it. This movie is making money. It just makes sense. It ticks too many boxes for it to be not nominated for Best Pictures. So yes, it's going to be in Best Picture. Saying it now, it's a lock. So yeah, I am anticipating that Oppenheimer is going to get somewhere between 8 and 11 Oscar nominations. So let's ask the 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch it again? Yep. Can't wait to catch it again at the cinema, and you know it's going to be added to the wall someday. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? Absolutely. I know some people might be off-put by the runtime, but this movie flew by. It did not feel like 3 hours. It kind of straddles the line perfectly as a cinephile's film and a mainstream popcorn film. Okay, it's smart, it's thought-provoking, and it's stupendously entertaining. You'd be foolish not to watch this film in the cinema for the first time. It's big, it's loud, it's jaw-dropping, it's the definition of a blockbuster. I highly recommend that everybody watches this film at least once before they die, so you might as well try catch it in the cinema. And third question, what score to give it out of 10? This is definitely a top-tier Christopher Nolan movie for me, guys, okay? I'd say it's in my top 5 of his work. I have a few minor gripes of it, but I admired the hell out of this movie. So I'm gonna give Oppenheimer a score of 9.5 out of 10, which coincidentally is the exact same score I gave to Barbie as well. So yeah, I love both of them equally. But for very different reasons. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I want to hear from you. What did you guys think of Oppenheimer? Which do you prefer, Oppenheimer or Barbie? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, help me out by hitting the thumbs up button. For more movie, TV, and Oscars-related content, don't forget to click subscribe. And thanks as always for watching, guys. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Harefield, and I'll see you next time.